Welcome to the Story a Day podcast. This is Julie Duffy, encouraging you to be a writer today, not someday. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It's Julie here from the Story a Day podcast. Today's podcast is going to be a little more personal, but I will get to the writing and you'll see why in a minute. Last night when I was getting ready to set up the Superstars Hangout that we do once a month, where we all get together and we talk about writing on a Zoom call. We can all see each other. It's really nice. It's really great time talking about writing. I got some news about a friend that a recent friend, someone I'd recently met, but who had made a really big impression on me. And unfortunately, he passed away unexpectedly yesterday morning, and I was just totally stunned, didn't know what to do. It's not my loss really, although he made a big impression on me. So I was rattled, upset, the way you are, walking around saying things like, but I was just with him on Friday, like that makes a difference, and having flashes of interactions that we'd had together and when we'd met and when he'd done this and when he'd done that, and just, all the things that you go through when somebody departs, expectedly or unexpectedly, I suppose. But I had, not very much time before I was going to hang out with the Superstars, so I just, fired up the technology and got on there, and being in a group of people talking about the thing that we do that makes us more who we are, more sort of essentially who we are, was really cathartic. It was distracting for one thing, which was great. But it also, when life hurts, there's a temptation to shut it all down and avoid and put it off, or to wallow too much and become mired in sadness. And getting together with my writer friends was very healing, and I encourage you, if you haven't found writer friends yet, to do that, because if writing is the thing that makes you more close to the best version of yourself, then you want to be around people who bring that out more often. And I wouldn't talk about this if it was just that personal sort of therapeutic, soothing thing that I got out of it. But one of the things that I got out of our discussion really helped me this morning when I woke up. So we were talking about the difficulties. We talk about the joys and the highs of writing, and we also talk about the times when it's difficult and what we do to get over those difficulties. And with as many different personalities as you have in a group, you will get almost as many suggestions or techniques or experiments to try to get yourself past whatever's hanging you up when you're writing at the moment. And one of the things that somebody said last night was that it can be helpful if you're stuck on your writing. It can be really helpful to think about one single person and write a story with that person in mind. Whether you're thinking about them, I think, as a reader, or whether you're just thinking about them, it can really give your story an anchor. So as I woke up this morning and I was wandering around and sort of wandering around my house doing all the things you have to do in the morning, and I kept on having this, I can't believe he's gone, and just this distraction of thinking about this person and wanting to talk to people about him, even though I don't really know any of his friends, because, like I say, we didn't know each other well, but we're starting to get to know each other, and that this isn't my loss, and it feels weird to want to call someone up and say, I want to talk to you about this guy. It seems self-indulgent. But I kind of want to talk to his loved ones and let them know that in this very short amount of time, he'd made an impression on me, and he'd had this positive effect on my life. And it occurred to me that this was exactly what we have been talking about in the group last night. I could write a story. I could write a story with him in mind. And it didn't really matter whether he was in the story or whether it was true, or just that that anchor, the idea of writing a story with him in mind, got me to my desk this morning. So I wrote a story, and of course the story started to incorporate memories that I have of interactions that we had had together. So there's a character in my story who is very much like this lovely man I just met and lost. And the story is fictional, but it's also true. And I think that's what we're always aiming for. The beauty of fiction is that we create these worlds and we can make them any way we want them. We can make stuff happen the way we want it. We can fix memories and moments of kindness and beauty, and we can fix them behind glass and keep them forever. And even if the events and some of the characters aren't the real ones that walk through the world, the story can be true on a deeper level. Like in my story, this guy's a former basketball player. I have no idea if the real version of him ever played basketball. I know he was tall, but in my story he plays basketball, but I still feel like I could give this story to his loved ones if I revise it and polish it, and I don't know if I'll ever do that, but the idea that I could give this story to his loved ones and say, look, he inspired me to write this, and the truth of the character in this story is the truth of what I saw in your loved one. And I found that really inspiring. It got me writing. It helped me to work through a whole bunch of things, and it stopped me from wandering around the house in circles going, but I just saw him on Friday. Instead, I sat down and I wrote truth about humanity and about how people connect with each other. And when I finished the story, it was a mess because it's a first draft, and I was like rewriting paragraphs trying to get it right, and it's all over the place. But there are a couple of lines, a couple of moments that anchor the story that I know if and when I go back to revise it, those moments will exist and the emotions that exist in them will remain the same. And I'm motivated to do that revision by thinking about, even though I might never give it to the family, I might never show it to them, I might never show it to anyone, but I'm motivated to do the revisions, which is not something I always enjoy. Although with short stories, I'm much more comfortable with revision than I am with novels. Interested to hear how you feel about that. But it was quite motivating to think about how this story might help people. Sometimes I think when we're writing, we get caught up in who am I? Who am I to say this? Who am I to think I'm a writer? Who am I to think that anyone will want to read my stories? And I always find that anything I do, if I start getting caught up in questions of who am I turn it around to an idea of service. Like, who am I serving by doing this? Who can I help by doing this? And I might not know who needs to read the story that I'm writing this week, but I go in with the expectation, the hope that my interpretation of the human experience will resonate with someone and brighten their day a little, make them feel a little better about something. Whether it's because they're thrilled and terrified by a horror story and it just takes them away from their daily horrors, or whether it is that they're uplifted by a romance and they look at their own partner in a new light and remember the sweet things that they do, or whether they're excited and stimulated by the ideas in a science fiction story and it energizes them to go out and invent something or just look at the world in a new way, just even for a moment. And that's, short stories are momentary and they might only have an impact on somebody's day for a moment. they offer the opportunity to live so many different lives and connect with so many different people. And that's the beauty of fiction. So the reason that I wanted to talk about this was because so much in writing advice tends towards the thought of publication. How to get published, how to find, please editors, how to polish your story. That sometimes we get disconnected from the value of making art for what Srini Rao of The Unmistakable Creative calls an audience of one. It's the title of one of his books, and it's a thought-provoking read. He makes the case, and he's not the first to make this, but it's, that's the thrust of the whole book, and it's a great way to focus on the idea. He makes the case that if you're not writing for an audience of one, namely yourself, then it's very hard to get any satisfaction and any traction in your work. It's very hard to do your best work if you're not writing to please yourself first. And that's what I did today. I wrote to soothe myself. I wrote with the idea of expressing to someone else the impact that this person had on me. But that was not the prime motivator. It wasn't the prime result either. And I will tell you that when I finished the story, messy as it was, I felt massively soothed. I felt like I had captured, I wasn't worried about forgetting the little things that had meant so much to me in our short friendship, because I'd captured the essence of them in this story. And sometimes writing is just about writing for yourself. It's about making art because that makes you a better person. It's about untangling the thoughts in your head. And on days when you are motivated to work on your craft, dialogue and plot and character arcs and all that kind of stuff, that's all great. Because on a day like today, I didn't want to just journal. I didn't want to just ramble. I wanted to tell a story that would have an impact. And so I drew on everything I've been learning over the past 10 years about writing. I drew on all the craft stuff I could muster to get emotion into my story. And at one point, as I sketched out the climax, I had tears in my eyes. And I think that's a good thing. It's cathartic, and there's a quote, and somebody can tell me who it's from, who says, "No tears in the writer, no tears in the reader." We need to get emotion into our writing. Not always, but to make a connection with readers. So I just encourage you to sink into your writing today and write for yourself. Absolutely get to the point where you're sending stuff out to publishers and journals if that's what you want to do. But every time you sit down to write a new story, allow yourself to write it for one person or with one person in mind. Whether it is someone that you're looking to get revenge on because you are living the best life, some old English teacher who told you you would never amount to anything, whether it's a long-lost relative who you had a complicated relationship with, whether it's your best friend from high school who you miss, or whether it's somebody that you've just lost, or whether it's yourself. Write for one person today. Write for the love of it. Write for its own sake. But most of all, keep writing. Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week and, of course, keep writing.